Why detachment is the ultimate power. Most people lose control of their lives through emotional attachment. Attachment to approval, attachment to outcomes, attachment to people who no longer respect them. And the deeper the attachment becomes, the easier they are to manipulate, because once something controls your emotions, it quietly starts controlling your behavior too. That's why truly powerful people often appear emotionally detached. Not because they don't feel emotions, because they understand something dangerous. The person most willing to walk away usually holds the most power. Detachment removes desperation, and the moment desperation disappears, fear begins losing control over you. If this perspective already changes how you see power, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone still emotionally controlled by things they're afraid to lose. Most people spend their lives emotionally chained to things they cannot control: other people's opinions, relationships, money, outcomes. And because they are deeply attached to these things psychologically, they become controlled by them. That's the hidden danger of attachment. The more emotionally dependent you become on something external, the more power it gains over your internal state. A person terrified of rejection becomes easy to manipulate socially. A person terrified of losing money becomes easy to pressure financially. A person emotionally addicted to validation becomes controlled by approval. This is why detachment feels so powerful, because detachment removes emotional leverage, and without leverage, manipulation becomes much harder. Now, most people misunderstand what detachment actually means. They imagine coldness, isolation, emotionlessness. But real detachment is not the absence of emotion, it's emotional self-control, the ability to experience emotions without becoming psychologically owned by them. That distinction changes everything. A detached person can still care deeply, still love, still build relationships, still pursue success. But they do not collapse emotionally when circumstances change, because their identity is not fully attached to external outcomes anymore. That creates stability, and stability creates power. Look carefully at emotionally attached people during difficult situations. The moment uncertainty appears, panic appears, a relationship becomes unstable, a business fails, someone criticizes them publicly, and suddenly their entire emotional state collapses because too much of their identity was invested externally. That's why emotionally attached people often tolerate situations destroying them internally: toxic relationships, disrespectful friendships, exploitative work environments. They stay not because they are happy, but because attachment creates fear of loss, and fear weakens decision-making. This is why powerful individuals train themselves to remain psychologically capable of walking away, not because they enjoy loss, because dependence destroys leverage. The person who needs something the most usually loses control first. That principle shapes almost every power dynamic in life: business negotiations, relationships, social environments, even politics. The side operating from desperation becomes predictable emotionally, and predictability creates vulnerability. That's why emotionally detached individuals often appear calmer under pressure. They are less controlled by immediate emotional impulses, less desperate for specific outcomes, less reactive when circumstances shift unexpectedly. And people instinctively associate that calmness with strength, especially in modern society where emotional impulsiveness became normal. Most people react instantly to everything: moms, opinions, criticism, volatilization, rejection, every emotion immediately expressed publicly. But emotionally detached people create space between feeling and reaction. That pause matters psychologically, because power often exists inside emotional restraint, the ability to observe emotions without obeying them automatically. This is one reason detachment unsettles people sometimes. Emotionally dependent individuals expect reactions. They expect chasing, begging, over-explaining, neediness. But detached people behave differently. They can let situations end without emotional chaos, let people leave without destroying themselves internally, accept misunderstanding without desperately fighting for approval. And that emotional independence creates psychological gravity, because human beings naturally respect people who appear internally stable, especially people capable of remaining composed during uncertainty. Now, detachment does not mean becoming passive or ambitionless. That's another misunderstanding. Detached individuals still pursue goals aggressively, still build wealth, still create meaningful relationships. But their emotional survival does not depend entirely on success or external validation. That's the difference. An attached person says, "I need this outcome to feel valuable." A detached person says, "I want this outcome, but I remain stable either way." One mindset creates desperation, the other creates control. And desperation quietly destroys power in almost every environment. People sense emotional desperation instinctively in dating, business, friendships, leadership. The person overly attached to being liked, chosen, or validated unconsciously lowers their own positioning. But emotionally detached individuals become difficult to manipulate because they are less controlled by fear of loss. That's why detachment often looks like confidence from the outside, not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that remains calm even when outcomes become uncertain. And uncertainty reveals emotional dependence faster than almost anything else. That's why difficult situations expose people so clearly. Pressure reveals attachment, loss reveals attachment, rejection reveals attachment. The moment something important becomes unstable, most individuals immediately show what controls them emotionally. Some panic when relationships change, others panic when money disappears. Some collapse the moment public approval weakens. Why? Because their emotional foundation was built on external conditions staying stable permanently, and life never guarantees stability. That's why emotionally attached people suffer more than necessary, not only because painful things happen, but because they psychologically resist reality after it changes. They cling, chase, beg, overanalyze, trying desperately to hold on to things already leaving. But detached people understand something different. Everything in life is temporary. Relationships change, identity changes, wealth changes, people change. And the faster someone accepts impermanence psychologically, the harder they become to break emotionally. That's real detachment, not pretending not to care. Accepting reality without emotional collapse. Now, this does not mean detached people never feel pain. They do. Loss still hurts. Disappointment still hurts. Betrayal still hurts. But emotionally detached individuals process pain differently. They allow emotions without allowing emotions to completely control identity. That's a massive difference. Most people become consumed by emotional experiences. A breakup becomes identity destruction. Failure becomes self-worth destruction. Rejection becomes proof of inadequacy. But detached individuals create psychological separation between events and identity. Something painful happened. That does not automatically mean they became worthless. This mindset creates resilience, and resilience creates quiet power because emotionally resilient people recover faster, adapt faster, think clearer under pressure, and clarity becomes extremely valuable in difficult moments. This is one reason detached individuals often make better long-term decisions. They are less blinded by emotional desperation, less likely to tolerate manipulation out of fear, less likely to betray themselves to avoid temporary discomfort. And over time, that emotional discipline compounds into freedom. Freedom to leave unhealthy environments, freedom to reject disrespect, freedom to take calculated risks without emotional paralysis. Because the more emotionally dependent someone becomes, the smaller their choices become. Fear starts controlling everything: fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty, fear of being alone. But detachment weakens fear because it weakens emotional dependency. The detached person understands, I can survive loss, and once someone truly understands that psychologically, manipulation loses much of its power over them. That's why the most emotionally dangerous people are often the ones least controlled by desperation. Not reckless people, not emotionless people, disciplined people, people capable of remaining internally stable without constant reassurance from the outside world. This is also why detachment creates social power naturally. People sense when someone does not emotionally need them for identity or validation. That energy feels different, calmer, more grounded, more difficult to manipulate through guilt, pressure, or emotional games. And ironically, emotionally detached individuals often attract more respect because they are not constantly chasing it. That's the paradox. The less desperately someone clings to outcomes, people, or approval, the more psychologically powerful they often become, because attachment creates emotional vulnerability, but detachment creates options, and options create leverage. This applies everywhere: relationships, business, leadership, negotiation. The side most willing to walk away usually controls the interaction psychologically, not because they are cruel, because they are free from emotional dependence. That freedom changes posture completely. You stop begging for understanding, stop chasing validation, stop forcing things that clearly no longer align with your peace, and eventually, something changes internally. You realize power was never about controlling other people, it was about controlling yourself, your emotions, your reactions, your attachments. Because once external things stop controlling your internal state, fear begins losing authority over your life entirely. And that is why detachment becomes one of the highest forms of power a person can develop. Until next time, learn to hold things lightly. Most people destroy themselves trying to hold too tightly to things that were never fully theirs to control anyway.